Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Jai Shri Radhe Govinda Radhe Govinda Radhe Govinda Jai Shri Radhe Govinda Jai Shri Gaurani Thai Gaurani Thai Gaurani Thai Jai Shri Gaurani Thai Jai Srila Prabhupada 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 Jai Srila Prabhupada Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Rakshita Mataji, for the nice kirtan. Thank you, Kartik Prabhu, for such nice slideshow. My God, this darshan a treat for the eyes. I think I want to steal that from you. It's so nice. Thank you. Hare Krishna, everyone.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you for coming.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Thank you for coming. Okay, so let's start with the invocation prayers. Om Agyan Timirandasya Gyananjan Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Gadameyam Dadati Swapadantikam. He Krishna Karna Sindhu Dinbandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kantha Radha Kanta Namastute Saptakancham Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishvanusude Devi Pranamami Haripriye. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advait Gadadhar Shri Sadhika और Bhaktivinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare. Okay. Who can tell me? Sorry. What did we study today? What is the name of the chapter that we did yesterday? Chapter 7.
Absolute truth.
Huh? I'm sorry.
Knowledge of the absolute.
Knowledge of the absolute. Jnana Vijnana Yoga. Okay. What is the name of chapter 6?
Dhyan Yoga. Dhyan Yoga.
Ashtanga Yoga. Very nice. What is the difference or link between chapter 3 and chapter 5? Anyone ready? I guess we can have someone raise the hand then. Please raise your hand if you now read and are aware. What is the link between chapter 3 and chapter 5? Yes, Mataji, you can unmute. Shri Vidya Mataji, you can unmute.
I mean, chapter 3, we say that in chapter 3 and chapter 5, in both we are talking about self-realization. In chapter 3, we are saying like we can attain self-realization through renunciation of work. But in chapter 5, we say like you need to do all the activities thinking of Krishna so that your heart gets purified. Because in chapter 3 and chapter 5, like in chapter 3, there are chances that you can get entangled in material bondage. Whereas when we do action in Krishna conscious, there are chances that we don't get entangled in material bondage.
You are saying chapter 3, Krishna says, renounce work, don't work. Is that what you're saying?
No, for self-realization in both we have, it's karma yoga. You have to work here, you have to work, you have to do the activities, keeping in mind sacrificing for Krishna. I mean, when you're doing all activities, you have to be Krishna conscious in chapter 5.
What about in chapter 3? Yagnarthat karmanonyatra lokoyam karma bandhana. The 17th verse. Yagna arthat karmano yagna arthat karmano anyatra lokoyam karma bandhana. The work has to be done for the satisfaction of Krishna or Vishnu. If one is not doing the work with that consciousness, then work entangles. Mataji, refer 3.17. Yagna arthat karmano anyatra loko ayam karma bandhana. If you don't work in that consciousness, then you'll be entangled in the material bondage. This is the instruction in 3.17. Anyway, thank you so much for participating. No one else speaks. Thank you. Hare Krishna. So I will still not tell the answer because no one is actually hitting the nail here in this class. Okay, so chapter 8, attaining the supreme, Akshara Brahma Yoga. So let's pay our obeisances to Shri Radha Govinda before we proceed. This is what we did yesterday, glories of knowledge about Krishna, where Krishna glorified about the process of hearing about him from a proper bona fide source. And then we studied from 7.1 in 7.1 purport that how hearing about Krishna is glorious. How when one hears from a proper source, it actually Paramatma in the heart cleans the heart, and then one becomes ready to adopt, to hear about the process of devotional service, and by acquiring the knowledge, one becomes fixed in the knowledge, right? And then whatever misgivings are there in the heart, they get cleared, and then one attains fixation in the devotional service. So glories of knowledge about Krishna and knowledge of Lord Krishna's energies. So about 22 energies are described. External, see me in the taste of water, or in the ability in man, or in the energy of sun and moon, like that. Then surrendering unto Lord Krishna, 4 kind of people who surrender and 4 kind of people who do not surrender. Krishna describes them. Then demigod worship and impersonalism. Some people surrender to Krishna indirectly, avidhi purvakam. So that's the people who go to demigod and impersonal, and or become impersonalist, thinking that Krishna is energy. And then from delusion to devotion, he wants to nullify all these impersonalism or demigod worship and 4 kind of people who do not surrender, and he wants to bring them from delusion to devotion. And he mentions that even if somebody at the last moment of their life tries to become fixed at the lotus feet of Krishna, they can attain Krishna even at the last minute of the life. So this is chapter 8, very powerful chapter actually. It's a very, very powerful chapter. There are 8 questions which are answered by which Arjuna asked Krishna in the beginning of the chapter. So chapter 8, 8 questions. Now you're going to have an added on question in your list. Link between chapter 3 and chapter 5 is going on for days. Okay, and then this is going to be another question, that what are the 8 questions that Arjuna asked Krishna in chapter 8. And then remembering Krishna at the time of death, remembering Krishna by Yoga Mishra Bhakti, remembering Krishna by pure Bhakti, material world versus spiritual world, and supremacy by Krishna of pure Bhakti in attaining Krishna. Okay. So these are the questions that Arjuna asked. Arjuna inquired, "O my Lord, O Supreme Person, what is Brahman? What is self? What are the fruitive activities? What is this material manifestation? And what are the demigods? Please explain this to me." So what is Brahman is question number 1. Number 2, what is the self? Number 3, what are fruitive activities? Number 4, what is this material manifestation? Number 5, what are the demigods? And how does this Lord of sacrifice live in the body? And in which part does he live? So number 6 and number 7, O Madhusudana, and how can those who live, how can those engaged in devotional service know you at the time of death? That's number 8 question. So these are the 8 questions. I'll show in the table form also. But the bigger question is that where is he coming from? What makes him ask these questions? So the analysis is given. Arjun is hearing very attentively. So in 7th chapter, verse 29 and 30, Krishna uses some words which Arjun does not understand. So he proposes those questions. In 7.29, he says, Chara Marana Mokshaya Mam Ashrite Tantiye Te Brahma Tadvidukitsam Adhyatmam Karma Cha Akhilam Sa Adi Bhuta Adi Devam Mam Sa Adi Yagnam Cha Ye Vidu Prayana Kale Api Cha Mam Te Vidur Yukta Chetasaha. So he's using this word Brahma, Adhyatmam, Adi Devam, Adi Yagnam, Prayan Kale. Krishna is using these words and Arjun is asking clarification that what are the meanings of these words. So these are the questions. What is Brahman or spirit? Krishna answers Brahman is Jiva or indestructible living entity, is also called Brahman. What is Adhyatma? The controller of the body, which is the nature of the self, Adhya Atma. Karma, what is karma? This is very famous question asked in Bhagavad Gita. What is the meaning of the word karma? Krishna answers this karma as this: actions that lead to another material body. So we do an activity, and by that activity, we get another material body. That is the definition of karma. What is Adibhuta or material manifestation? That's the material nature around us. Adi Deva is a universal form which includes all demigods. So Adi Deva is a subject of discussion from chapter 11 onwards, the universal form of Krishna. And it is very elaborately explained in second canto of Srimad Bhagavatam also. Adi Yagna, the enjoyer of the sacrifice, which is Paramatma. Where does Adi Yagna reside? In the heart of all. How to remember Krishna at the time of death? Practice remembrance throughout life. Okay, so very interesting. Let's go. So Supreme Lord said the indestructible transcendental living entity is called Brahman. So Sanskrit language, one word can have more than one meaning. If you read the purport of 8.3, even 8.1, Prabhupada explains the meaning of the word Brahman. There are three meanings of the word Brahman. One meaning is the Brahma Jyoti, the impersonal energy, light that comes from the body of Krishna. Another meaning, Brahman, is the self or the soul or the transcendental living entity. Or the third meaning of word Brahman is the material nature. So depending on how this word is used, in what context, the meaning changes. Okay, so here Brahman means indestructible transcendental living entity or the soul. And his eternal nature is called the self, which is Adhyatma. Action pertaining to development of these material bodies is called karma or fruitive activity. Okay, so we do an activity and then we get a result of that activity, reaction. Okay, so that's called fruitive activity. Remember in 4th chapter, verse 17, karma, akarma, vikarma. 3 words were used, right? Krishna says the action, the intricacies of karma are very hard to understand. Now hear from me, what is karma, what is akarma, and what is vikarma. So there karma, he didn't really spend too much time. Actually, Krishna does not spend too much time in talking about karma at all. We become very interested in knowing what is karma, but he actually says in one line in 4th chapter that intricacies of action are very hard to understand. So he doesn't spend too much time in Bhagavad Gita or even in Srimad Bhagavatam or in Chaitanya Charitamrita. We don't read much about Krishna spending and explaining the intricacies, just mentions it. Means he doesn't want us to spend too much of energy in understanding the intricacies. What does he want us to do? He wants us to do akarma. Akarma means inaction. Inaction means that do an activity but don't get the result. And the result is no material body. Just you do activity but you don't get a material body, which is possible only if one is doing work for Krishna. Okay, so this is karma, right? We do activity and then we make another material body based on that activity. Let's say if somebody is living a life like a animal, then their next body is an animal. Somebody in the human form of life is eating and drinking anything and everything, not even considering for a moment that what can be the consequences. Then the body of a hog is ready because Krishna is in the heart. So Krishna is noticing that this living entity still has a desire to enjoy the material world in such a manner. So gives facility for enjoyment. It's actually a mercy. If somebody is very predisposed to doing some charitable work for others, then the enjoyment in the heavenly planet is waiting. If somebody is very inclined to do Krishna consciousness, practice devotional service under the supervision of a bona fide spiritual master, then Goloka Vrindavan is waiting. Vaikuntha is waiting. So like that. Okay, so Adi Bhuta, physical nature is said to be endlessly mutable. The universe is the cosmic form of Supreme Lord, and I am that Lord, represented as a super soul dwelling in the heart of every embodied being. Okay, so we know that the physical nature is endlessly mutable. Nothing is fixed in the physical nature. The weather changes, our body changes. Even if I don't want it to change, it will still change, right? Everything changes. Over here we have given example of a nymph getting into maturing into a butterfly. So even that doesn't stay fixed. How does it is explained in the Shastras that how does this larva of butterfly become into a butterfly by meditating into becoming a butterfly? Just by meditating, it actually becomes. So that's explained in Srimad Bhagavatam. So it's basically the point to impress is that Adi Bhuta is not fixed. It's endlessly mutable, keeps changing. And the universe is the cosmic form of Supreme Lord. So this will be more elaborately explained, as I said before, in chapter 11. But the cosmic, so this universe is the material universe, not the spiritual universe. So this particular universe, if we see it through the eyes of the Shastras, then we see that actually this universe is designed in such a way that we can actually remember Krishna. It is not designed in such a way that we can forget Krishna. If you really want to remember Krishna, the remembrance is given in many ways. Like for example, yesterday Krishna said that I am the light of sun and moon. Right? So the sun and moon are put in place and they are given the light so that we can look at them and remember that Krishna said this. Or the different plantations are compared to the hair on the body of Krishna, or different big mountains, or big assets, big buildings, big manifestations. They are compared to the bones in the body of Krishna. Like that, the remembrance is given. So that is why it says the universe is the cosmic form of the Lord. To people who have very hard time accepting that God is a supreme person, so there's a personality and not energy, Krishna becomes accessible in that form. Okay, you have a very hard time in understanding me as a person, then just remember me by looking at this. Like, for example, in Srimad Bhagavatam, it is said that the sky is blue, right? It's blue. So the material scientists are working very hard to find out that how it is blue. Some of them even say that it appears blue because I don't know, because some prismatic reaction of the light. They study light and then they throw the light through this prism, that prism, and then it breaks down into so many colors. And blue light has this wavelength. Whatever complex explanations they are giving, the Srimad Bhagavatam says one thing, and a devotee accepts it's blue because it is showing the reflection from the body of Krishna. Krishna's body is blue in color. So the reflection of that is blue, which is appearing as the sky appears blue from that reason. As a devotee looks at the sky and sees the blue color and thinks of Krishna. So basically, that's what it means. The universe is the cosmic form of the Lord. And I am that Lord represented as a super soul, dwelling in the heart of every embodied being. So I am the Adi Yagya, which is residing in the heart. So we go for looking for Krishna, and Krishna says, I'm in the heart. So these are 7 out of 8 questions are already answered by till verse number 4. Now the last question was how to remember that Adi Yagya at the time of death, right? Prayana Kale. How do we remember Krishna? So this Krishna spends considerable amount of time in explaining the answer to the last question that Arjun put. Antakale cha mam eva maram muktva kalevaram yaha prayati samadbhavan ya ati na asti atra sanshayah. And whoever at the time of death quits his body remembering me alone at once attains my nature. Of this there is no doubt. So how to remember Krishna at the time of death? By remembering, by at the time of death, remembering me alone. If one becomes fixed in remembrance of Krishna at the last moment, at once attains my nature. So this at once is described in great detail in first canto, fifth chapter of Srimad Bhagavatam. Here Krishna mentions it. Then at once, if somebody wants to become Krishna conscious, then think of Krishna at the time of death. But that is more elaborately explained in the life history of Narad Muni. Narad Muni explains to Vyasdev how he became Narad Muni in first canto, fifth chapter of Srimad Bhagavatam. And there he said that when I left my body as the son of a maid servant, at once I achieved the body of Narad Muni. So our material life is not like that. We don't have an experience of something which happens at once in the material sense. For example, if somebody wants to become something in their life, like somebody wants to become a scientist or engineer or architect or whatever, doctor, whatever. So they can't say that just by wanting to become something they become something, right? They have to go through the college school for 12 years, then college for a certain number of time, and then have a job and work in that job to earn some experience. Right or wrong, this is the process, right? So around 16 years of life are gone to becoming what they wanted to become, right?
Yeah.
Or does it happen at once? At once?
No,
No, it
it's a
doesn't happen at
continuous
once.
process.
Correct. But in Krishna consciousness, Krishna is so accommodating. Actually, if someone can think of Krishna at the time of death alone, not of something else, alone Krishna, then Krishna accepts that person immediately without any prior consideration. There's a great science behind it, but understand that if Krishna is giving such a big instruction, that then it means that it is very difficult to think of Krishna at the time of death. It's difficult. So this is a very nice comparison. Prabhupada mentions this in the purport of 8.5 verse. Ani ani bhutani gachantiha yamalayam shesha savaram icchanti kim ashcharyam athaparam. So this is a story from Shanti Parva of Mahabharata, when the 5 brothers Pandavas were on exile in the forest. One time they became very thirsty, so they wanted to. So Yudhishthira Maharaj sent Bhima to fetch water. I think the youngest, the Nakul or Sahadev, one of them came first to look for the water body. So when he came near a lake, freshwater lake, he wanted to drink the water, but the water there was a announcement from the lake that don't drink this water. This lake belongs to me. I am Yaksha. If you drink this water, then you will die. So he ignores this warning, and he drinks the water and he dies. So then the other brothers, one by one, Arjun comes, Bhima comes, and Nakul comes. So they come one by one, and they think when they see Sahadev lying down on the floor, they think that he's resting. They don't think that he's dead. So whenever each one of them come individually, and whenever they're trying to drink water, Yaksha announces, but they all ignore the announcement and then they drink the water. Then Yudhishthira Maharaj comes looking for his brothers, and when Yudhishthira Maharaj watches his brothers, he also thinks that they are sleeping, not dead. So when he is about to drink the water, then Yaksha announces that again, and Yudhishthira Maharaj for once hears it. He hears the warning and he stops acting on it. So and then he finds out that the brothers are dead, so he requests Yaksha to bring the life back. So Yaksha said that I will only bring the life of one of the brothers back. But for doing that, you have to answer my questions perfectly. If you answer any question wrong, then you lose the chance of getting your brother back. But only one brother, and that too if you answer the questions perfectly. And he asked him so many questions. Hundreds of questions are asked to Yudhishthira Maharaj, and Yudhishthira Maharaj keeps answering them. And then this is one of the most famous questions that Yaksha asked, that what is the most wonderful thing in this world? What is the most wonderful thing in this world? I guess if we ask this question to each one of the devotees sitting over here, then we get different answer, right? What is the most wonderful thing? Oh, most wonderful thing is my family, or the most wonderful thing is whatever one thinks most wonderful thing is in their life. But interestingly, this is the answer that Yudhishthira Maharaj gave to Yaksha, that hundreds and thousands of living entities meet death at every moment. But a foolish living being nonetheless thinks himself deathless and does not prepare for death. This is the most wonderful thing in this world. Okay, so many living entities are meeting death at every moment. But we think that I'm not gonna die. This is for other person. This death was for some other person. It's not for me. If we think it is for us, then we'll prepare for it. But the very fact that we don't prepare, we don't inquire, we go on with our other activities other than preparing for death day-to-day basis, means that we also come under this category. This is the most wonderful thing in this world. Okay, so it is important to prepare for the final exam, and Krishna emphasizes the importance in this verse. Yam yam vapi smaran bhavam tyajati ante kalevaram tam tameveti kanteya sadat bhava bhavitaha. Whatever state of being one remembers when he quits his body, that state he will attain without fail. This is Krishna speaking, okay, not me or not anyone else. Krishna says that whatever state one remembers when he quits his body, that state he will attain without fail. So there is a very big misconception in people in general that if somebody achieves a human form of life, then they can never get the animal form again. I don't know what is a reference. I don't know where it is written, because what we read in the Shastras is this, that whatever state of being one remembers at the time of death, that state one achieves. So this is the story of Bharat Maharaj, which I'll tell in the next slide. But he was thinking of a deer at the time of death, so he became deer. So from human form of life, he did achieve the deer form of life. Okay, so in fifth canto Srimad Bhagavatam, there is this story of Bharat Maharaj, not the Bharat of Pandavas, or not the Bharat from Ramayana, but Bharat Maharaj many millions of years before even that happened. The whole of the world was under his kingdom. So he was on the Bhava Bhakti platform. There are 9 stages of bhakti. When somebody starts their Krishna consciousness and tries to become serious in Krishna consciousness, and they go through this 9 stages, right? Shraddha, Sadhusanga, Bhajan Kriya, Anartha Nivritti, Nishtha, Ruchi, Asakti, Bhava, Prema. So Bhava Bhakti is like the 8th stage. It's very elevated stage. So because of that, he was naturally very renounced. He actually he's not like he was artificially trying to renounce, or out of frustration wanted to renounce. He was naturally renounced. So at a young age, he handed over his kingdom to his sons, and the care of his wives to his sons, and took renunciation so that he can progress further in Krishna consciousness. So at that time, the method of self-realization was meditation and doing this havan, these yagyas. So he came to live in a forest, such a big king, under whose reign there was only one flag in the entire planet of Earth. The whole planet was called as Bharatvarsha because of the king Bharata. Okay, but in somehow what happened, that near his bhajan kutir was a stream, water stream. And then one day when he was engaged in his Krishna conscious practices, there was a roaring of a lion, very loud roaring. And in the water stream, there was this mother deer who was carrying the baby inside her. Because of the fear of the roaring, she actually gave up her life and had a premature delivery of the baby. So Bharat Maharaj saw all that, and he became compassionate on this doe and brought it to his bhajan kutir. Somehow or other, he became attached to that doe. He would take care of it, feed it, and talk to it, and whatnot. And then one day, when he became big, the doe became unto a deer, grew up, Then he went to the forest and one evening did not return. Probably was eaten up by another animal. So he became very perplexed that where is that deer, where is that deer, where is that deer? And when because that's all he could think of. And when it was his moment to leave the body, he thought of the deer and then he had to accept the body of the deer. So, but because of his Bhava Bhakti platform, Krishna actually gave him a remembrance that why he became deer. He remembered, like we don't remember. How many of us remember that why we have the body that we have? What was the reason? Anybody in this class remembers what is the reason of one acquiring this body that we have? Anybody remembers? No, we don't remember.
No.
Generally, don't. Okay, but Krishna gave him the remembrance. Krishna says, Matta Sritir Jnanamapohanam Cha, 15 chapter, 15 verse. Remembrance, forgetfulness, and knowledge comes from me. So because he could remember his mistake, now in the deer body also he was keeping the devotee association. And then he had to go back to the body of Jadubharta and then he went back to Krishna. So basically the point is that yam yam vapi smaran bhavam tyajati ante kalevaram. Whatever one is thinking at the time of leaving the body, that tam tam eveti kantaya sada tad bhava bhavita. That state one attains without fail. Okay, so tasmat, therefore. The conversation is starting with the word tasmat, which means therefore, which means it is a continuation from previous talk. Tasmat sarveshu kaleshu mam anusmara yuddhacha mai arpita mano buddhir mam eve ashyasis asanchayaha. So therefore, sarveshu kaleshu, all the time, not just 2 hours in the morning or 5 minutes here and there, but no, therefore all the time. Mam anusmara yuddhacha. So this is a very interesting sequence of events Krishna says here. So nothing is a mistake in Bhagavad Gita. Okay, it's not that when we talk, we sometimes put words here and there, but we really don't mean them in this sequence. But that's not how Sanskrit is, or that's not how Krishna speaks. There's a lot of perfection. So he gives first instruction. Therefore, all the time, do what? Mam anusmara, think of me. Yuddhacha, and fight. So he says, first think of me and fight, both together. Okay, otherwise he could have said fight and also think of me. No, think of me and fight at the same time. And give me my arpita. My arpita means surrender, or give me mano buddhi, give me your mind and intelligence. Mam evashyasi asanchayaha. And then you will attain me without fail. This okay, because we can die at any moment. That's why be very careful that what you're thinking of. You have to think. Thinking is the power of the mind. Krishna has given it. So we all have it. But what to put in that thought process? Me. Krishna says, put me. Therefore, Arjun, you should always think of me in the form of Krishna and at the same time carry out your prescribed duty of fighting. So imagine Arjun's condition. Like one can say, how is it possible? Because Arjun is going to be in the war field and he has to fight and make so many small moves so attentively, because if he doesn't, then it can cost him his life, right? So intricately he has to think. But Krishna is still saying, think of me. Don't forget me even in that condition, and fight. So there is one secret in spiritual life, and that is that with the instruction comes empowerment. If somebody decides with a lot of conviction in the heart that I am going to follow what Krishna says, and understands what Krishna says from a bona fide source and tries to follow it, they become empowered to follow it. Means the instruction itself empowers the person to follow the instruction. Everything is living in Krishna's world. So even the instruction is living. If somebody really wants to do this, then Krishna will make sure that you do this. Okay, with your activities dedicated to me and your mind and intelligence fixed on me, you will attain me without doubt. So asanchaya, of this there is no doubt. So in whatever circumstances we are, we can always think of Krishna. We are always thinking. This thinking is already a power of the mind. If somebody is working, let's say at their home, or students are there and they're studying in the school, or if somebody is working in a particular job or business or wherever, are we only working? There was a good survey done by the devotees in ISKCON Chopati, Mumbai. Okay, so I was hearing about that if somebody is working in an office for 8 hours, okay, these devotees did this survey. They work in an office for 8 hours. So the job that they're doing in 8 hours, if somebody does with a lot of concentration, do you know that that job, which is stretched over 8 hours, can be finished in how much time? Any guesses? How much time does this job really require? What a normal person is doing over 8 hours? Any guesses? Throw a guess.
2 hours.
Any
After
reason?
2 hours.
2
Wow,
hours.
yeah, that was the answer. 2 hours. So the stuff that a person is doing in 8 hours can actually be done in 2 hours. So why does it take like 8 hours? Oh, because they're not just working. Let's say somebody has this computer on for their work. Okay, they're working in one screen, but they're just not working, and it's happening to everyone. Then they have the news channel on the background, right? And they have the shopping channel on the background, or there's some email on the background, a personal email. There's so many things going on at the back, but then there's work also going on. So the concentration is divided, chopped off here, there. Even nowadays, the students who study in the school, they are so distracted, because that's the nature of Kali Yuga. As the Kali Yuga will progress, people will become less and less attentive. They're so distracted with the phone in their hand. They do one question and then they check the phone. Another question will be, and they don't even sometimes finish the question, but they have to, if they're compelled to answer the text message on a phone. So that kind of concentration power, one word gets stretched to so long. But if somebody becomes Vivasatmika Buddhi or fixed in Krishna consciousness, then Krishna takes charge of that person. Okay, we don't do it. Who is this? What's happening in this picture? Anyone knows who is this? Who is this? What's happening here? A little boy chanting and dancing with another little boys.
Prahlad.
Prahlad Maharaj, very nice. This is Prahlad Maharaj, right? He was the son of Hiranyakashipu. So he was actually born in an Asuric family, demoniac family, but he was a devotee. So in the school, when they will have recess time, so he would tell his friends, let's chant and dance on Hare Krishna. So he would teach them dancing and chanting, and the boys, simple children, they would, dance and do whatever their friend is doing. अभ्यासयोगयुक्तेन चेतसा न अन्यगामिना परमं पुरुषं दिव्यं याति पार्थ अनुचिन्तयन्. He who meditates on the Supreme Personality of Godhead is his mind constantly engaged in remembering me, undeviated from the path. He, O Partha, Arjun is sure to reach me. This is the third time. One time I did analysis how many times in this chapter Krishna is saying without doubt, sure to reach me, surely will come to me. You see, he's using these words, right? Partha anuchintayan. Surely he'll come to me, O Partha. Or na atra sanshayah. There is no doubt. So I was like analyzing the chapter one time. So Krishna says 5 times in this chapter. 5 times he says the same thing. He keeps on repeating, you'll surely come to me. There is no doubt about it. You will remain, if you remain undeviated, this path is open. At once you will come to me. So, but how does one go to Krishna? By meditating on Krishna as Krishna, not meditating on Krishna as the energy. Okay, this is another reassurance from Srimad Bhagavatam 6th canto, Ajamila story. So there was this person called Ajamil. Okay, this is in 6th canto. Ajamil was born in to a Brahmin father. So like father, like son, right? So the father trained his son in Brahminical qualities. There are 9 qualities of a Brahmana. So he trained him, and he trained him how to do deity worship, and he trained him how to cultivate the Brahminical activities. So one time, Jamil went to the forest to collect 4 kind of grasses and flowers for the worship of the deity. So when he was coming back, he saw this. He saw this prostitute hugging another man, and they both were in intoxicated position. Vyasdev writes that their eyes were rolling, like, as if they're having nystagmus. So the eyes are rolling. So anyhow, so he tried to think of his Brahminical qualities, the verses that his father made him memorize, but he couldn't control, he couldn't forget the scene. So when he came home, he actually kept thinking, right? Remember in second chapter, we studied in verse 64 and 65, Dhyate Vishyan Punsaha. So it starts with the thought. And so he kept thinking that I wish I can have that leverage of enjoying with that lady. So the thought becomes so strong with attachment and desire to associate. So he actually threw out his elderly parents and his very chaste wife. He had a very chaste wife, but he actually told his wife, "My dear wife, you need a maid servant. You do too much work. You need to have somebody to help you out in the household chores." She said, "No, I'm happy. I'm satisfied with my service. I don't need anyone." But he said, "No, no, you need." So he brought this lady from the one who was in the forest as a maid servant. And slowly he kicked everyone out and kept her in the house. So elderly parents and such a beautiful and chaste wife with Brahminical qualities is now kicked out. Okay, so that's that. So basically, he fell down from his practice, and he was associating with this prostitute. The association has so much power that he actually, to satisfy her material desires, he had to earn money, and he started earning money by illegal means. He would do gambling, he would do robbery, or cheating, or thief, or so many things, and he would just get money in the house, and then he would eat food cooked by her hand. So Vyasdev is explaining all this in very great detail. And then he had 10 sons, 10, not sons, 10 children with her, 10 children with her. And it's mentioned that he had his last son was born when he was 88 years old. When he was 88 years old, he had the 2-year-old boy called Narayana. He somehow named him Narayana. Krishna gave him the intelligence. He was not worshipping the deity, or he was not calling him Narayana so that he can think of Krishna. Nothing like that. Just named him Narayana for the sake of. And it is mentioned that old people are generally very attached to the young children. Sneha, right? The word sneha is described over there, which means affection, which comes down to the youngest. So old people are very attached to the broken language of the small child and their innocence. Everyone is attached, but in particular, old person is very attached to that innocence. And so he was attached. So he was talking to his son all the time. Narayana, come here. Narayana, sit here. Narayana, eat. Narayana, go there. So Narayan, 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 Narayan. He kept saying that subconsciously. And because he took the name of Krishna, he actually became purified in some way. One afternoon, he lied down to take a nap. He wanted to take rest in the afternoon. So he was lying down, and it was a time for him to leave the body. So it was a time for him to die, actually. So rightfully, Yamdutas came, right? Yamdutas come to claim the sinful soul, the soul who has done sinful activities. Krishna conscious soul who has chanted Hare Krishna offenselessly even once is not an inhabitant of Yamlok anymore, doesn't see the face of Yamaraj, one who chants Hare Krishna Mahamantra. So he rightfully, right, Yamdutas came because he has done so many wrong things in his life. And we think of the person that we are most attached to when we are in danger. So he was most attached to his son who was playing nearby. So in that most vulnerable position of his life, he chanted the name of his son, Narayan, please save me. So he wasn't praying to Krishna. He wasn't doing anything, but he chanted the name of Narayan in offenseless way. And as soon as he said Narayana, 4 syllables, Vishnudutas came and they stopped Yamdutas. And then there was a talk between Yamdutas and Vishnudutas as to who's going to claim the soul, because this person has done so many simple activities. And Vishnu says that this person may have done whatever, but because he has chanted the name of Narayana offenselessly, all the karmic reaction is gone. So if there is no karmic reaction, what is this person going to do in the Yamlok? Yamlok means there is some karmic reaction that we have to bear the result of. But because of chanting this Narayan, everything is gone now. So anyhow, there was this discussion, and by the grace of Krishna, Ajamil could actually hear all this. So at the end, of course, Vishnudas will win, but he was not purified to go back to Vaikuntha. So the soul was put back in the body of Ajamil. So he was given a second chance. So he was put back. And then when he woke up this time, he was lamenting that, oh my God, what did I do in my life? I wasted so much time. So he was not taken, he was given a chance, and then he immediately retired and went to Haridwar. And on the bank of Ganges, he started doing his Krishna conscious activity from the very point that he left. And then when he left his body, then he became purified. Then Vaikuntha Viman came from Vaikuntha Lok. This is what happens. This is what comes for a devotee when the devotee leaves the body. Krishna sends a Vaikuntha Viman with the Vishnu Dutas and welcomes that person back home. So he went back after he became purified. So this is the verdict of this particular verse, that he who meditates on Supreme Personality of Godhead, his mind constantly engaged in remembering me, undeviated from the path. He, O Partha, Arjuna, is sure to reach me. So when Ajamil left his body for sure for the second time, then he was meditating on Krishna. Now Krishna is going to say this. These are the 10 qualities of Krishna in 8.9. He says, meditate on me. So what does one has to meditate on Krishna as? These are the qualities that Krishna wants us to meditate on him as. Kavim Puranam Anushashitaram Anayor Aniyam Sam Anusmaradyaha Sarvasya Dhataram Achintya Rupam Aditya Varnam Tamasa Parastat. One should meditate upon the Supreme Person as the one, Supreme Person as the one who knows everything, as he who is the oldest, who is the controller, who is smaller than the smallest, who is the maintainer of everything, who is beyond all material conception, who is inconceivable, and who is always a person. He is luminous like the sun, and being transcendental, he is beyond this material nature. So let's garland Krishna, okay? How do you think of Krishna? Kavim. Kavim means knower of everything, past, present, future. Purana means oldest. Everyone is born out of him, so he's oldest. Anushashitaram. Anushashitaram means who controls everything, the supreme controller. Anayor Aniyam Sam, smaller than the smallest. Dhataram means the maintainer. And beyond all material conception, all big planets are floating by his energy. Rupam, always a person. Achintya, inconceivable. Aditya Varnam, luminous like the sun. Tamasaha Parasta, transcendental, beyond this material nature. So these are the 10 qualities that Krishna wants us to meditate on him when we think of Krishna at the time of death. Okay, so a great demigods are actually worshipping Krishna. They are devotees of Krishna, they are devotees. We study their qualities in Srimad Bhagavatam. Brahma, our Brahma, the four-headed Brahma, whenever there is a problem, he actually goes to meditate on Shvetadvipa, where he meditates on Mahavishnu and gets the instructions. Lord Shiva is always meditating on sitting on meditation. Right? He's always sitting in meditation. He looks renounced always. What is he meditating on? He's meditating on Sankarshan form of Krishna. Lord Shiva glorifies Krishna in Srimad Bhagavatam in so many places. 4th canto, he's giving instructions to Prajapatis. And then again in 6th canto, the story of Chitraketu. And then in 8th canto again. So Lord Shiva talks about Krishna in many places. So Mam Upetya Punarjanma Dukhalayam Ashashvatam Na Puvanti Mahatmana Samsiddhim Paramam Gatim. After attaining me, the great souls who are yogis in devotion never return to this temporary world, which is full of miseries, because they have attained the highest perfection. That is the only way, right? Dukha Alayam Ashashvatam. So Krishna is the architect. The Brahma is a secondary engineer. Primary knowledge how to make this world is given to Brahma by Krishna. So Krishna is the primary architect, and he knows in and out of this world. So he's calling this world where we are living as Dukha Alayam. Dukha Alayam means a place, right? For example, Vidyalayam, a place where library, a place where there are books. Or no, Vidyalayam is school, where a place to acquire knowledge. Or Pustakalayam is library. like Alayam. Tell me some things that end with Alayam. Bhojan Alayam, place to eat, right? Some words.
Rugunalayam, hospital.
Okay. The hospital is some Alayam. Okay. And what else?
Mandir.
Some,
Mandir.
what is the Alayam on that? Now that's what I'm not able to understand. Mandir.
Himalayam.
Mandir.
Himalayam, okay, that's the immovable greatest mountains. Himalayam, a place where things cannot be moved, so that's a mountain. Okay, so there's so many things. Everything that ends with Shivalayam, the place where Lord Shiva is worshipped, like that. All right. Now Krishna is calling this world as Dukhalayam, a place which is full of miseries. And then somebody can say, okay, this place is full of miseries. It snows somewhere, there's a drought somewhere, there's flooding somewhere, there is strike of lightning somewhere, there is fire somewhere. There's so many, or so many things are going on. So okay, I'm gonna do one thing. I'm gonna earn a lot of money and make a house in which I can have all the comfort. So there may be some dukkha going on out of my house, but my house will have no misery. So it may be Dukkhalayam outside. So Krishna says, you can do that, but then the next one is Ashashvatam. Ashashvatam means this temporary. We could make all these arrangements, but how long these arrangements are going to last, or how long a person is going to last. Time is very powerful, right? Time means destruction. Slowly destroys everything. So Dukkhalayam Ashashvatam. So Krishna says we have to become, we focus on this world as Dukkhalayam Ashashvatam, but comes to me. Somebody says I'll do pious activities and go to the upper planetary system, the Swargalok or Gandharvalok or Charanlok, or so many like 7 upper planetary systems are mentioned. But there also this is going on. From the highest planet in the material world down to the lowest, all are places of misery wherein repeated birth and death take place. But one who attains to my abode, or son of Kunti, never takes birth again. Okay, we live for 100 years and Brahma lives for millions of years, 311 trillion years. In our calculation is the age of Brahma. But it looks infinite, like looks like forever. Brahma is living for forever, but he also dies. So it's a ratio. Prabhupada explains this, that if you do 100 divided by 100 is also 1, because it's a ratio. It's just a ratio of how far one is living. But that doesn't mean that they don't die. They also die. So we have to get to a place where there is no death. So on earth there is war, hell is just a pain, and on the heaven also there are so many miseries going on. We read so many times Indra has to run away and hide under the water because the demons have attacked and he's going to be killed because he cursed, he disrespected his spiritual master Brihaspati. So Brihaspati said, I'm not going to take care of you anymore. Brihaspati doesn't give instructions to Indra how to fight. So he doesn't know how to fight when the demons attack. And then there is a fear of, so they capture the kingdom of Indra, and now he has to take shelter under the water. And because of the curse, now the curse is, so there's so many things. This is all given in Srimad Bhagavatam. So that don't think that heaven means nothing. There's always a war there. This is what I was talking about. By human calculation, 1,000 ages taken together is the duration of Brahma's one day. And such is also the duration of his night. When Brahma's days manifest, this multitude of living entities come into being. And at the arrival of Brahma's night, all are annihilated, right? This is our understanding that everything that is alive around us, including my body, is under the day of Brahma. But when Brahma's night comes and everything is annihilated, that's partial devastation. Again and again, the day comes and this host of beings is active, and again night falls, O Partha, and they're helplessly dissolved. But parastasmatu bhav anyo vyakta avyakta sanatanaha yaha sa sarveshu bhuteshu na nashyatu nashyatu na vinashyati. Yet there is another nature which is eternal and transcendental to this manifested and unmanifested matter. It is supreme and is never annihilated. When all in this world is annihilated, that part remains as it is. So there is a part of the world which is not undergoing this vyakta avyakta, manifestation and unmanifestation. Is not going, it remains as it is. So that part is Krishna's abode, which is like Vaikuntha or Goloka Vrindavan. Actually, Krishna is welcoming all of us. That's why he's giving us this information. If he doesn't want to welcome us, then why will he reveal the secret? You are in this place, but you can actually come to this place. The Bhagavad Gita is actually a love letter from Krishna to a soul. Right? That's what the content matter of a love letter is. That I am like this, somebody else, and you are like this, and then we can be like this. We can whatever. So Krishna is doing the same thing. I am like this. I can take you to the spiritual world, and you are eternal. You also don't die, and you come to me because this is the place where I can take you. So it's so sweet. And this is just a description of what the Goloka, Vrindavan, or Vaikuntha planets look like. Let me zoom in. So this is in first canto Srimad Bhagavatam only. So this is the material world, one universe. So what happens? This is Goloka Vrindavan, where Krishna lives, and all his devotees are. So Krishna expands himself into Balram, and then Balram expands himself into Sankarshan. And for the sake of material manifestation, Sankarshan expands himself into Karanadaksha, Vishnu, or Mahavishnu. So this Karanadaksha, Vishnu, or Mahavishnu is given the responsibility to create material universes. So material universes are created from his breathing. He breathes, and these universes come out. And then he again enters into each and every universe as Garbhadaksha Vishnu. From Garbhadaksha Vishnu's navel and lotus stem comes out, and on the top of the flower Brahma takes birth. And in the stem of the lotus are all these planets from 7 upper planetary system and 7 lower planetary system, right? So we are here. It's very small, so you can't see, but Bhurlok. And then on top is Bhuvar, Swahar, Mahar, Janar, Tappa, Satya, right? And then Brahmalok, so 7. And then Atal, Vital, Sutal, Talatal, Mahatal, Rasatal, and Patal. So these are the 7 hellish planets, depending on what kind of activity one is doing, they're sent. And every planet is populated with living entities, every one of them. So Krishna now from Garbhadaksha Vishnu expands himself into Shiradaksha Vishnu, which is Paramatma, which is present in the heart of every living entity. And this is all going on inside the sphere of the material universe. And the material universe is so thick, it is guarded by Mother Durga. So Rama Devi or Maya Devi or Mother Durga is guarding this place, so that no one. She's a Vaishnavi, right? One of the names of Mother Durga is Vaishnavi, which means that she's the topmost devotee of Vishnu. That's the meaning of the word Vaishnavi. So she's guarding this place, that no one who is not Krishna conscious should be able to escape this out. It's very, very thick. And Mahesh Dham is nearby, Lord Shiva's Dham, which is outside of this material manifestation. And this is covered by so many layers. 7 layers are there, and each preceding layer is 10 times thicker than the succeeding layer, and it's very thick. Even if so, what is the material scientist doing there? What they're doing from Bhurlok, they want to go to some other planet, which they have not been able to do, by the way, and they will never be able to do it because one has to change the body to go there. But that's what they're trying to do. But Krishna consciousness is a process which says you go up or you go down, you will still die. Get out of here. It's compared to, Prabhupada gives example that let's say that somebody is in a jail. Okay. Now somebody is in a jail and they're getting a dry chapati to eat. A dry, riddled chapati with not so hot sabji. And the prisoner says, what is the prime duty of a prisoner? To get out of the jail, or to request that promote me to a A-class jail so that I can get a hot chapati, or just get out of the jail? What is the prime necessity? Yes. What is the point?
Get out of the jail.
Get out of the jail.
Get out of the jail, right? Not get like from C-class prison to a A-class prison, because prison is a prison. So that should be the duty of a human being, to get out and go here. Get out to go where? To go here. And if you see that there is this string of Hare Krishna Mahamantra, which can actually directly take, if one catches this string of this sound vibration, one can actually go directly to Krishna. Okay, so Narottam Das Thakur Prabhupada sings this. Golokera Premadhana Hari Nam Sankirtana. The Hare Krishna Mahamantra is directly imported from Goloka Vrindavan. We get so proud, right, and happy then when we purchase imported products. Oh, I got this from this country. I got this from this country. Why don't you take Hare Krishna Mahamantra coming from another world itself? So it's the most prominent imported product which is freely available. Okay, so this is again a description of when one enters out of this particular material sky, then one can enter into Brahmajyoti. In Brahmajyoti, there are planets. Like in this sky, there are planets. So there are planets where Vaikuntha planets are there and Goloka Vrindavan is there. And Vaikuntha planets, depending on how one wants to associate with Krishna, Krishna accommodates everybody. Okay, so this is a brief description. And what is happening over there? This is what is happening. That everyone is having fun with Krishna. Krishna loves all living entities, not just humans. Krishna's cows, Krishna's birds, Krishna's animals, Krishna's trees, Krishna's monkeys, Krishna's mother. So we go to temple. Do we go with a stick in our hand, like Mother Yashoda, to catch Krishna and scold Krishna? Do we go like this? Generally, no, we can't, right? But she's a Nitya Siddha. So she's enjoying that rasa, that mellow with Krishna as being Krishna's mother. And Krishna is also giving her full enjoyment by becoming a perfect son. So all the relationships that we actually hanker for in this world, there are 5 only, primarily 5. Shanta, Dasya, Sakhya, Vatsalya and Madhurya. These are the 5 relationship a soul hankers for, because that is what one has a relation with Krishna. Their incompleteness available in the spiritual world. Okay, and this is a prayer by one of the Alvars from Ramanujacharya Sampradaya, King Kulashekara. Prabhupada actually translated his prayers. So Ramanujacharya Sampradaya, King Kulashekara prays like this. Krishna Tvadiya Pada Pankaja Panjarantam Adveyana Vishato Manasa Rajahansa Prana Prayane Samaye Kafavat Tapitte Kantha Vidho Smaranam Kutaste. Oh Krishna, please allow my mind to immediately yield to your lotus flower like feet, just as a flamingo enters into labyrinth of the lotus flower stem. When at the moment of my last breath, my throat becomes constricted by the action of bodily humors, bile and phlegm, how will I be able to remember you? So it's not so easy to remember Krishna at the time of death, because we can't even, the throat becomes constricted, we can't even remember what we are, forget about remembering Krishna. And everything becomes very tough. The bodily airs are confused, the mind is confused. So he's praying, let me leave my body now when I'm healthy so that I can think of you. Right? So, Vedeshu Yagneshu Tapasu Chaiva Daneshu Yat Punya Phalam Pradishtam Atyati Tat Sarvam Idam Viditva Yogi Param Sthanu Peti Cha Adyam. A person who accepts the path of devotional service is not bereft of the results derived from studying the Vedas, performing austere sacrifices, giving charity, or pursuing philosophical and fruitive activities. At the end, he reaches the supreme abode. So Krishna is saying that Arjun may feel that, okay, he's just saying, think of me, fight for me, work for me. But then Arjun might think that what about giving charity? What about doing sacrifices? What about studying the Vedas? So Krishna is saying all these 4 things, one is not bereft of. When one is thinking of Krishna on the path of devotional service, one is not bereft of all these things. And not only that they're not bereft of, but at the end he reaches the supreme abode, that is Krishna's planet. Okay, so this is what we did. I have a very powerful video to show today. Birth again, death again. If you haven't seen, then please stay. So the beginning of the chapter. So tomorrow I will ask what are the 8 questions Arjun asked. So please, I request you, make me proud. Arjun asked 8 questions to Krishna, and then Krishna answers 7 out of 8 questions by verse 4. Okay, by verse 3 and 4, he answers 7 out of 8 questions. And then he spends a lot of time answering the last question, which is how to think of Krishna at the time of death. Remembering Krishna at the time of death from 8.5 to 8.8. Some people remember Krishna by Yoga Mishra Bhakti, by performing Ashtanga Yoga, Dhyana Yoga. Right? Some people, but Krishna wants us to remember him by pure bhakti, where we discuss the 10 qualities of Krishna that Krishna wants us to meditate on. And then material world versus spiritual world, parastasmatu bhava anya. Where Krishna says, this place is dukhalayam shashvatam, come to this anya bhava. And supremacy of pure bhakti in attaining Krishna from verse 23 to 28. So don't worry that, okay, I'm not doing this yoga, I'm not doing this sacrifice, I'm not studying the Vedas, I'm just doing Krishna, 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 Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Don't worry, Krishna is giving validation that everything will be fine and you will be not bereft from the advantages of doing all those things. Plus, you'll go to Krishna.